Hey, I'm at a place today called the Convery National Park, and it's about a 2.5 hour walk. And I come out here with my wife a good bit, and lately we've seen all sorts of things: animals, deer, wild boar, owls. The owl last time was literally 10 feet away. Armadillos, raccoons, all very close up from this walkway here. But there's so much going on in the world now, society, politics, the environment, technology, all these things. And a lot of factors seem to be amplifying it all. The internet. Psychology is an important aspect of all these things that are going on. And some recent realizations. The other day I saw popped up an ad on YouTube for a publishing company, Brave something or other. And it's basically a response to LGBTQ issues. And that is, they are publishing children's books, one per month that you can subscribe to, where they are claiming to teach masculinity. And that implies that gay LGBTQ people, that it is somehow taught. And this is a common word we hear nowadays, grooming, that anyone who is pro-LGBTQ is grooming children, turning them into, homosexuals or something like that, which is completely wrong. People are what they are, and they should be allowed to be what they are. But time was in the past, the fellow doing these books, to me he came across as being extremely angry. A lot of anger, a lot of rage there, which I suppose, could be considered masculine, haha. But the truth is that when it comes to people's behavior, especially when it is aggressive and angry and negative and things like that, of course they might claim it's positive, is that it's coming from pain. So in his case, at some point in the past, I would have basically, gotten angry back. And it's like, because the behavior is basically the same as what Nazis did. You find an enemy and vilify them. So we see that now. LGBTQ, immigrants, all this sort of thing. Oh, these people are ruining our society. They're trying to destroy everything that we stand for, and we have to defend ourselves. And when you do that, you basically engage in combat with them, which is what we see in politics. Now, in his case, or anyone like that, as I said, it's coming from pain. So someone who is anti-gay and all that, and masculinity, what kind of family did they come from? Did they come from a good, healthy family? I guarantee you, no, they didn't. They suffered trauma, psychological abuse, judgment, in their family. Now, I have something else to say about schools, and this may sound quite extreme, but I'm basically, I don't even want to say take a position, but basically what schools do, we put children in schools and tell them to memorize a bunch of stuff to prove something to us, that they're worthy of whatever, our approval. And think about it. You went to school, right? You might have dropped out, but you probably went to grade school. You might have gone through, 1 through 12. 12 years of memorization. Well, how much of it do you remember? Because probably hardly any. I remember hardly any. You had to memorize, math stuff. In England, we did the times tables. But when it comes to speaking, you learn that from hearing other people speak. Kids learn language from hearing it. So that whole process that we put children through, that you have to learn, you have to memorize things in order to validate yourself and get approval, and then to have it going on for so long, and have the parents in support of it as well, is abuse. Because the way that children learn, 90%, is by observation. So if adults were really doing something constructive, productive, that made sense, then children could just learn by being there and observing it. They would learn it quickly. And this is what happens with indigenous people, because the children aren't forced to do anything. They simply observe what the adults are doing, whether it be hunting or gathering or socializing or whatever it is that they're doing. That's how they learn. So anyway, it all adds to the psychological trauma that we all experience. So I've talked about Aborigines before, and basically they were around for over 100,000 years. They were the happiest, healthiest people ever studied because they did everything right. So they are, in a sense, the model. And we, on the other hand, get everything wrong, literally. It's not being critical, it's just simply the truth. Things are not working, they are in failure mode. So anyway, an axiom I've mentioned before, which is subtraction reveals invisible solutions, can be applied to anything. It may be a little difficult to apply because, take for example, cars. Now, cars have been around for quite a while. It basically, profits people at the top, the elite, the corporate people, to have us all driving cars all the time. But there are many places in the world where that's not the case. People don't have to drive everywhere. They can walk. They're in a village setting, more or less. So what would happen in America if somehow, magically, tomorrow, all the cars just vanished? Maybe they were sucked up into space. But whatever method, they're all gone. Okay, well, that's subtraction. You just subtracted the cars. So now what happens? What do people do? Well, they would have to do something, wouldn't they? They might figure out how to walk places. They might figure out how to get food supplied more locally. As a matter of fact, everything would become more localized. There might be a difficult transition period, but before you know it, people would be turning their, suburban settings into gardens, productive, with fruits, vegetables, chickens, some livestock, things like that. And in a sense, that would be going back through time, because that's the way things were, a little while back in history. But what's happened with all these technologies, cars, for example, in the beginning when cars came around, in cities like New York, mainly people walked everywhere, but then cars appeared. Well, cars began killing people, running them over. What did the auto industry do? Well, at the time, there was the word J-A-Y, which basically meant idiot. So the auto industry came up with the term jaywalker, basically saying, well, if you walk in front of a car and get killed, you're an idiot. It's your fault, And that's basically the same thing the fossil fuel industry has done with the carbon footprint idea. So they're saying, well, it's your fault. It's you're the one that's using the stuff, and thereby they try to pass the blame on to us. So anyway, they create these systems that profit them. And speaking of profit, what it all comes down to in this system, the reason why it's in failure mode and it's not working for everyone, it's destroying the world, is because it's capitalism. Now, a lot of people cling to capitalism because they think it's part of their identity. It's like, it's the best system and it's natural and it's, But basically, capitalism puts money first. So people are not first. People are never first. Other systems, and the trouble is when you use any of these names, capitalism, communism, socialism, none of them apply 100%. So America may seem capitalistic, but what's a public library? Is it socialism? What is a family doing when they feed their children without charging them? It's communism. So it's not that everything is all black and white, but these labels get used and then people get all riled up about it. So they want to simplify things, But the thing is nothing's really simple the way that we have them now. And when it comes to subtraction, revealing invisible solutions, it's a wonderful process. There's an example with Aborigines in Australia, where several tribes moved to Tasmania, which is an island. And there was a time when it was connected, it wasn't an island. But what they did was they renounced a lot of stuff. They gave up a lot of tools, spears, boomerangs. They gave up fire making. Now they did have fire, but if the fire went out, they would borrow fire from another neighboring tribe. So anthropologists have wondered why they became more primitive when in fact they didn't. They were subtracting things, actually to make life better. And I've talked about Aborigines before, but basically the way they lived in the universe, they were directly connected to everything, directly connected to what they called the dreaming, which is the underlying consciousness of the universe, which, we have gotten all turned into dogmas and things and put names on things. But anyway, I started off this talk talking about pain, in people's underlying pain, and that being a motivation for their behavior. And there are quite a few deep psychological tests that people can take. One is provided by the Enneagram Institute. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. And incredibly well designed and thought out. And the test costs $12 to take. And it takes about 45 minutes. I encourage you to take it, because what it'll do is tell you your personality type. And for example, well, I won't go into mine, but in detail, but come here. But someone's coming. But there's another one which is Jungian, and it's based on, you could call it shadow work. That's what they call it. Hi. Yeah. And Jungian shadow work. And basically what shadow work is it explores and defines your subconscious. And subconscious is what people are not aware of, but it's in the background all the time dictating their daily behavior, which is incredible to think about, that there's a little man behind the curtain influencing all the decisions that you make. And another aspect of all this is, like, people think about things all day. Their minds may be, going 100 miles an hour. But emotions always precede the thought. Emotions drive the thought. Emotions always happen before the thought. So it's good to know that. And also with the subconscious, it's like the subconscious dictates the behavior. It always comes before the behavior. So with these tests, the shadow work test, it's 12 questions at a time. The first question of the first set of questions is, what value did your parents teach you? Did you learn in your family? And I immediately knew what it was. And in my case, it wasn't good. It was hate, because my parents were highly critical. of everything out there. They always had something negative to say about what they saw on TV or who they saw or anything like that. And they didn't get along well either with each other. So other people have said, the value was hard work, you know, and so my parents taught me hard work is a value. Well, what that really means is that you need to prove something. You need to work hard to prove that you have value, which is basically saying you have no value. So as a value, it's not a value at all. So what I'm getting at with this talk here is basically just how messed up and damaged people are, how in pain they are, and how little people understand where it's all coming from. So when you get into situations like politics, the political arena, and society trying to solve problems and things like that, well, with social media and the news cycle and all that, they know that every time they present a nightmare scenario or something that induces fear, that you're going to look at it. So it serves them to divide people, to create what's called wedge issues, where it separates people into, warring tribes, things like that. And basically the media, not just, television and the internet, but the newspapers, the New York Times and all that. Well, who's funding it all? It's the billionaires, it's corporate America that's funding it all. And it benefits them to keep us all separated in this chaotic system where we continue to toe the line, buy the products, send the money to the top. So anyway, that's where we are right now. And it's another thing that's interesting, RFK Jr., who basically when he's interviewed and they ask him, they try to get him to be adversarial about other people and be critical. What about Biden falling over, or what about Trump saying this? He won't do that. He says, I don't do that. I don't attack people. And he just discusses the issues. He's quite honest. He's knowledgeable. He's been, creating lawsuits against polluters, industries, corporations that are doing bad things. Well, it's funny because last time I came out here to the Riverwalk, not the Riverwalk, the Congaree, I was thinking about RFK Jr., and I began writing a comic in my head, comic book, Super RFK Jr. And I wrote the whole thing, walking around 2.5 hours, basically. I wrote it in my head. And then I get home, and there's email from his campaign basically saying that he's going to be here where I live in Columbus, South Carolina, on Sunday. And so anyway, I'm going to go down there. Maybe I'll be able to speak to him. I think everybody gets to meet him. I don't know how many people are going to be there. But yeah, it's odd, And on the way back from running some errands the other day, I thought, maybe I could stop at a thrift store here, which I basically quit doing. I've sold everything, my collection of books and things for the most part. But I got an intuition. Basically, intuition is the thought that comes into your head before you have time to think, the message. And I got a yes. As soon as I thought, should I go to the thrift store? Boom, yes. So I went in the thrift store, walked over to the books. First book I saw is about John F. Kennedy assassination. So it's a strange, coincidence, several coincidences in a row. And I'll close this by giving you a free preview of the comic, RFK Jr. comic idea. And I'm almost up to 20 minutes on this talk. But anyway, he's got a cape, in a superhero outfit. He's flying around. And someone flies up next to him. Who is it? It's Donald Trump. But Donald Trump has angel wings. And his hair's blowing back, so he's not maintaining the hairdo. And says, hey, what are you doing here? And Trump says, well, I don't know. I was having some chest pains or something. Next thing you know, here I am. So they're talking about things. And Trump says, my whole life I chased money. And that's all I did. That's what I focused on, and I regret it. And I realized it's like, how much is enough? How much money is enough? And all of a sudden, right in front of them flies a nun, like the flying nun, And RFK goes, well, that's your answer. How much money is enough? None. I'll leave it there.